In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to get your Bladeguard veterans painted and ready for the tabletop. And so you can follow along, this is an easy to follow step-by-step guide explaining all the steps and techniques, so you'll have the confidence and knowledge to get your own Bladeguard painted. I'll be showing you everything you need to know about painting your veterans, including things like the tabards, the helmets, and I'll even show you how to paint lightning effects on the swords. Welcome to TableTopReady, my name's Michael, and in this tutorial I want to give you the confidence to get your Bladeguard veterans painted as Ultramarines so that you can have some miniatures you can be really proud of. All of the paints and brushes I use throughout this tutorial will be shown on the screen as I use them, and they'll also be listed in the description along with any hobby equipment I think you'll find useful, with affiliate links to where you can buy them. As well, if you enjoy my content here on TableTopReady, then let me know by clicking that like button, and why not leave me a comment. I love reading them and hearing about your own hobby. And before we get started, we'll have to get our miniatures ready for painting, which I've made a dedicated video about on the channel, so go check it out. For this video I'll be painting our Bladeguard using sub-assemblies to make them easy to paint rather than fully assembling them. I'll also be undercoating them using McCrag blue spray, but know that you can undercoat your miniatures however you want, the steps are still the same. So when you're ready we can get started and learn how to paint your Bladeguard veterans. The best place to start when painting our miniatures is to get all of our base colours painted first, and this also lets us spend time choosing what colours we want to paint everything. Painting becomes less overwhelming. For our Ultramarines, let's start with our armour painting it McCrag blue, and when painting we want to thin our paints, and I find an equal amount of water does the trick. As well, I like to remove excess paint from the brush on some paper towel first, which helps give us more control over how much paint is deposited. And when we're ready to start painting, we want to keep our brush moving and avoid going over any areas we've already painted, to prevent creating any unwanted texture whilst the paint is still drying. Something else we might want to do is to have something we can hold on to whilst painting. Here I'm using some plastic shot glasses. This is because having a painting handle or attaching the miniature to something to hold on to makes painting more comfortable and prevents us from touching our miniatures too much. When you're done, because we thinned our paint, it won't have covered very well. So let's repeat the process and paint another layer. This also means we can build up to a solid colour without losing any details in our miniatures. Just make sure each layer has fully dried first before doing another one. It's really easy to overlook the basics, like how we apply paint to our miniatures, as well as just keeping things neat and tidy. But even after all these years, for me, these are the things that really make a difference to how our miniatures end up looking. Once you're done with your first colour, let's get all the ribbon between the armour and other details we want to be black, like weapon casings painted using a Baden black. And although we want to try and be as neat as possible whilst painting, if you're like me then you're going to be messy and make mistakes. That's okay though, because we can always go back and neaten things up as we go along, or just wait until we've done all of our other base colours before cleaning up any mistakes. For the next couple of details, we're actually going to mix our paint, which allows us to create colours that may not be available. For our belts and pouches, let's mix an equal amount of Rhinox hide and Mournfang brown. For any tabards, let's mix some Carrick stone with the same amount of Xandru dust. Then the last mix we want is an equal amount of Retributor armour and Liberated gold for all the gold details. After the gold details are painted, we can use Iron Hand steel for all of our silver details. Let's now finish getting our base colours painted using Korax white flash shields. Now we've gotten all of our base colours painted and everything's been tidied up, let's move on and learn how to bring out all those details. I'm now going to show you how we can make all of our details easier to see, creating definition and bringing out those edges with some highlights. I first want to show you how we can make our armour more interesting to look at and break up those flatter areas using a glaze. We want to start with Cantor blue, and to make this a glaze we want to thin it down with twice the amount of water. This is going to make the paint more transparent, allowing more of the colours underneath to come through. We want to apply this in thin layers around the lower legs, feet and anywhere else we think would look interesting. And so we achieve a really nice smooth gradient. We can use a glaze of the colour we're working from. Here I'm using a McCrag blue glaze and working it in the opposite direction. We can then continue working on our gradient, getting darker with a Night Lord's blue glaze. Next, let's bring out the details with a recessed shade using our Night Lord's blue again, helping to bring out the details, making them easier to see. A recess shade involves painting directly into recesses and areas to create our definition, rather than using an overall wash, which can be messy and darken the colours we apply them over. If you're a bit messy, we can neaten things back up with our base colour. Now let's see how we can also use our shades to create interest and definition. Let's first use some Norn oil on all of our silver details, and we want to only use enough to cover these details comfortably. For our gold details, let's apply Reikland Flesh shade in the same way. We can also get fancy being more intentional with our shades, so let's use our Reikland Flesh shade again, but this time only applying this to corners and the lower half of flat areas to make things more interesting. Now with our definition created and things looking more interesting, let's move on to learning how to highlight. The idea behind highlighting is to bring out areas, raise details and all those edges to draw our attention to them and to make these features stand out more. The first highlight we're going to do is called a chunky highlight, and for this we use an Bladeguard blue. Again, we want to thin our paint and remove excess on some paper towel first, which is going to prevent thick blobby lines. This highlight wants to be quite a thick line so we can still see it once we've painted our finer highlights after this. Spend some time painting this highlight along any edges as well as on any raised details and areas. Our next highlight is called an edge highlight, and I'm using Bladeguard blue, and this is used on any edges and to continue bringing out any details. To make this easier, we can angle our brush against an edge and run it along that edge to create the highlight. For the areas we can't do this, then we just need to take our time painting thin lines where we want our highlights to be. Creating definition is really important to do, because even at a distance it makes our details more easily seen, which is ultimately why we do it and why we learn to highlight, and it's not necessarily for realism. Let's continue highlighting with a finer highlight using Fenrisian Grey. This highlight is used to emphasise any areas and edges we want to be more prominent and eye-catching. Then the last highlight we can do is a spot highlight, using blue horror to paint little dots on all the corners of the armour where light would be more focused. And once you're done painting all the highlights, you'll be able to see what a difference it's made to our miniature. If you want to know more about highlighting, then I do have a dedicated video on the channel which goes into more detail about what I find helps me and what I did to improve. Now that we've learned how to create definition and the different highlights we can do, let's work on getting everything else painted. Let's begin by getting that ribbing between the armour done, as well as any weapon casings, and for these let's start with Eshin Grey for our chunky highlight. Now we can use Dawnstone for our edge highlight, and for the ribbed areas this means painting a line more towards the centre of the raised ridge to emphasise that curve. We can then finish these details with a spot highlight using Administratum Grey. Now with our weapon casings and ribbed areas done, I want to show you how to paint those tabards. With the base colours already painted on our tabards, the next thing to do is paint Sandry Dust into the shallow areas and folds of the material. For the deeper folds we can continue to darken these with Steel Legion Drab. Now let's continue working on the tabard using Carrick Stone to lighten the raised areas and folds. Once you've lightened the raised areas, we can use your Shabty Bone for a chunky highlight, and then finish with a line highlight using Screaming Skull. Let's add some interest on our tabards, making the bottom of them dirty and muddy, using some thinned down Steel Legion Drab. To get the shields finished, we can start with a Carrick Stone glaze and use this around the bottom of the shield and around the rivets to weather and add age. To finish the metals, we can continue to lighten the areas of the metal, including any skulls with liberated gold. We can then highlight all of our gold and silver details as Stormhouse Silver. I know that I'm showing you a lot, but it's really up to you how much you do and how many of these steps and techniques that you use. I just want to show you what's possible, and the most important thing is that you enjoy doing what you're doing. I now want to show you how to paint your helmets, which are a different colour to the armour. For any white veteran helmets, first paint them Corax white. Next do a recess shade with Administratum Grey. Highlight your white helmets with White Scar. When it comes to painting your veteran sergeant's helmet, start with Mephiston Red. After that we want to paint our white stripe with Corax white, and it's okay if you have to go back in with Mephiston red to neaten and tidy up. This is allowed, don't worry. When you're happy with that, use some Galvorback red for your recess shade, and then highlight the helmet first with Evilson Scarlet for a chunky highlight, and then Taillight Ochre for our edge highlight. The last thing to paint before we do the finishing details are the straps and pouches. First doing a recess shade using Rhinox hide, and this can also be glazed for some of the shallower areas. Let's now do a chunky highlight with Doomball Brown, and for our edge highlights let's use Taillight Ochre to finish these details. Now we've pretty much gotten everything painted, we can now focus on the more fun stuff, which I'm going to cover in the last section of this tutorial. In this last section I want to show you how to add interest, paint those power weapons and create some cool looking markings for your veterans. I want to start by adding some interest to our armour and making it look more weathered and worn, painting scuffs and scratches using Calgar blue. For other areas we can use Rhinox hide, and this would be for helmets and the shields. As well, don't forget to paint all those rivets with Stormhouse silver. It's a small thing but it really does make a difference. Now it's time to finish any power swords, starting with the handles, painting them with an equal mix of Screamer pink and Mephiston red. Next painting Galvorback red into the recesses, then highlighting the ridges with pink horror. When it comes to the blade, let's first apply some Norn oil, but on alternating halves of the blade. For the sword blade's energy effect, we first want to paint our lightning using Temple Guard blue, and this just involves painting squiggly lines that radiate out of the power node. When you're done we can use some Athematic blue to add a glow to the area. Now we're going to paint a thinner line within our first squiggly lines with Baharroth blue. I always think it's worth spending the extra time and effort on our miniatures, adding interest and doing the more fun things, because it's these details that are really going to help elevate them, making them stand out on the tabletop. If you want to really impress people, we can block in some shapes to create some markings on their crests. This is easily done by blocking in some simple shapes and colours until you're happy with how they look. And we can even spend some time highlighting everything, but only actually edges, as these designs are meant to be painted on. Now pick some transfer designs you think would work well and apply them where you want them. Let's finish these areas thinning down some Storm Shield varnish with an equal amount of water and apply this over the areas to get rid of the shininess of the transfers. The last thing I want to show you is how to paint those lenses, which I always like to leave until last for some reason. Start with your main colour, either Mephiston red or Warpstone glow for the Sergeant's helmet. Now paint a thin line along the bottom of each lens with Fire Dragon bright or Moot green. Finally we can finish any lenses painting a dot of white scar in the top rear corner of each lens. I love the opportunity to paint the more unique units in a faction, because it allows us to practice the more interesting details you may not see on other units. It's also a great way to keep motivated, and they're just fun to paint as well. So let's see how they turned out. The last thing I want to do is to say a massive thank you to all the amazing people who've made this tutorial possible with their continued support. It really means a lot. It allows me to get all the paints, brushes and miniatures I need to make these tutorials, so I can continue to help you get better at painting. And I especially want to thank Chris Dobson, Jane Smith, Andrew Vang and Dominating Hippo, who have all recently become supporters to the channel. Thank you so much. And if you feel like you get value and enjoy the content here on TableTopReady and want to help support the channel as well, you can become a channel member or join my Patreon, which gives you access to our Discord, regular updates, and you'll even get to watch videos and tutorials early. We've now finished painting our Bladeguard veterans, and I hope I've been able to give you the confidence and knowledge to get your own painted. I've got plenty of other tutorials on the channel showing you how to improve your painting and how to paint other units and chapters of Space Marines, so go check those out. I really do enjoy making these tutorials and I hope you find them useful. If you do, then please leave a like and let me know in the comments below. As well, make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss out on future content, and I'll see you in the next video.